8 years after Thomas Blake vanished, his ID card surfaced in a quarry, and what it led to exposed a secret darker than anyone in Brookhaven was ready to face. The quarry was no longer just a scar on the edge of town. It had become a crime scene, crawling with officers' floodlights blazing against the night. Inside its pits, among rusted barrels and chemical waste, investigators found more than scraps of fabric. They found bones, not just one set, but fragments belonging to multiple victims. For years, Laura Blake had been called delusional, accused of clinging to false hope. But standing at the edge of that quarry, clutching her husband's faded ID card, she knew what the truth demanded. Thomas hadn't walked away. He had been buried, just like the others. The discovery should have cracked the case wide open. But inside the Brookhaven Police Department, something else was happening. Detective Miller, the man who had once mocked Laura to her face, insisted the remains could be decades old and unrelated. He claimed the ID card might have been planted. His voice was sharp, defensive, desperate. But one officer wasn't buying it. Elena Martinez. Martinez had been a rookie when Thomas vanished. Her warnings ignored, her questions dismissed. Now, years later, she carried the weight of every failure she had witnessed. She combed through old files, re-examined every discarded lead, and noticed what Miller wanted everyone to forget. The quarry wasn't just near the factory. It was leased by the factory, the same place Thomas had whispered about, the same place he feared. He had warned Laura, if people knew what they were putting in the ground, they'd shut this place down. That whisper now roared like thunder. Martinez traced financial records tied to Victor Hale, Thomas's supervisor, the last man to clock out before Thomas disappeared. Hale had a history of silencing complaints, threatening workers, and cutting corners to protect profits. But now there was evidence placing his truck near the quarry the night Thomas vanished. Still, something didn't add up. Witnesses described seeing Hale with another man that night. A man who paid in cash. Tall, older, someone familiar, someone respected. Martinez pushed harder. She reviewed traffic cameras from the highway that cut through Brookhaven. At 2:13 a.m., Thomas's brother Daniel's truck rolled past, a tarp stretched tight over its bed, and trailing close behind, a dark SUV with obscured plates. But the SUV wasn't empty. In the reflection of its bumper, faint but undeniable, was the outline of a police badge. The realization struck like lightning. Someone inside the department had been there when Thomas disappeared. Suddenly, Miller's years of dismissals and mockery snapped into focus. He wasn't just incompetent, he was involved. Martinez quietly pulled Miller's financials. What she found sealed it. A series of unexplained deposits, large sums, timed precisely with moments when evidence had gone missing or leads had been shut down. Miller had been paid to bury the case. For Laura, the betrayal was crushing. The very man who told her to stop searching, who made her feel insane for demanding answers, had been standing guard over the lies. The town reeled. News broke of the quarry bones, of Miller's deposits, of Hale's violent past. Brookhaven had long depended on the factory's wages, but now it was forced to confront what had been buried along with its waste. At a town hall meeting, anger boiled over. Families of other missing workers stood shoulder to shoulder with Laura, demanding justice. Some shouted that the factory was the town's lifeline, that without it Brookhaven would die. Others cried out that it had already killed too many. The truth could no longer be ignored. Martinez, with the help of state investigators, raided a storage unit tied to Hale. Inside, they found boxes sealed in plastic, clothing, personal belongings, identification cards. Each item told the story of another disappearance that had been brushed aside. The horror deepened. Thomas wasn't the first. He wasn't the only one. He was part of a pattern stretching back years. Brookhaven had a predator, and he wasn't hunting alone. Miller was arrested first. Cameras captured his downfall as he was led out of the station he once controlled, his face twisted in fury. Hale followed, caught trying to flee town, his truck filled with tools and cash. The town watched in stunned silence as two of its most familiar figures were paraded in chains. But for Laura, the arrest didn't bring peace. She wanted one thing above all, to bring Thomas home. Excavations at the quarry continued. Day after day, investigators pulled up fragments. Bones fractured, burned, mingled with the soil. Each discovery was bagged, tagged, tested. And then, after weeks of waiting, Laura got the call. One skeleton, bound with rope, still wearing the tattered remains of a factory uniform, matched Thomas Blake. Inside the pocket of that uniform was a set of keys. Keys Laura recognized instantly. Her husband's house keys, the ones she had kept copies of for years. The moment confirmed what her heart had always known. Thomas had never left her. He had fought, he had been silenced, and he had been buried to keep others safe from the truth. The trial that followed was explosive. Hale's connection to the factory was laid bare. Years of dumping chemicals, silencing whistleblowers, and paying off detectives like Miller to erase anyone who stood in their way. Witnesses testified to threats, to bribes, to missing evidence. The dark SUV, it turned out, belonged to a retired officer, one of Miller's close allies, who had died years earlier, taking his full role in the conspiracy to the grave. But the jury didn't need every name. They had enough. Hale was sentenced to life without parole. Miller, disgraced and convicted of corruption and obstruction, followed. For Brookhaven, the verdicts were both relief and devastation. Justice had come, but so had the realization of how long the truth had been buried, and how many others had been silenced before Thomas. For Laura, the moment she had dreamed of for 8 long years finally came. She laid her husband to rest. This time, the chair at the dinner table would remain empty not because of mystery, but because of truth. Officer Martinez, once ignored, was commended for her persistence. But in her acceptance speech, she didn't celebrate. She looked out at the town and said quietly, "This isn't victory. This is a reminder. Trust can be broken. Silence can kill. And sometimes, the ones we turn to for protection are the ones we should fear the most." The factory still stands, its machines still groaning, its chimneys still filling the sky with smoke. But for Brookhaven, the illusion of safety is gone. The quarry revealed what many had suspected. Secrets can be buried, but only for so long. Thomas Blake's story ended in the ground. But in ending, it forced Brookhaven to face the truth. Because in small towns, where everyone knows your name, sometimes the greatest danger is the silence that follows when you disappear. This was Trace Crime Files. Subscribe for more stories where truth is stranger than fiction, and justice is never as simple as it seems.